Welcome to Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted podcast. I'm your host, Roushell Hamilton Jr. Thank you to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me with the gifts, talents, and resources to do this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today's storylines comes from the volatile AFC South division, and it's a division in which any one of these four squads can come up and take it. I'll take a look at the biggest storyline for each team in the South division. And for Cheat Meal Chronicles, I visited Hutchins Barbecue up in McKinney. And man, let me tell you, that is the best barbecue I've had in a long time. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to tell you all about it. Episode 16 of the Undrafted podcast starts now. Let's get it. The AFC South is the youngest division in the National Football League. It was created in 2002 when the league realigned divisions after expanding to 32 teams. The youngest team in the NFL is in the AFC South, the Houston Texans, of course. They were also created in 2002. The only Super Bowl victory in the division belongs to the Indianapolis Colts, who won it in Super Bowl 41 against the Chicago Bears. Peyton Manning and the Colts dominated the division during his time with the Colts. The Colts have won the division 9 times, followed by the Texans, who have won it 4 times. Tennessee's won it twice, and the Jags, they won it for the first time last year. A neat fact about the AFC South, in 2007, they actually had the best division win-loss record of all time with a .656 winning percentage. Now, as young as the AFC South is as a division, this division has had some great players. They've had players like Peyton Manning, Dallas Clark, Brandon Stokely, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison. Of course, all of those greats come from the Colts. Fred Taylor, Maurice Jones-Drew, Eddie George, the late, great Steve McNair, Andre Johnson, Owen Daniels, and in today's time, J.J. Watt. Now, J.J. Watt, he's kind of up in the air because he's a great player, and he's not on this list of greats. He's not on the list of all-time greats just yet, even though I put him in there for the sake of this podcast. Now, he'll be able to make his name stick on the list of AFC South greats if he can stay healthy and get back to his dominant form that we saw back in like 2013, 2014, 2015. If he can get back to that form and stay consistent at that form and, more importantly, stay healthy, J.J. Watt's going to be on the list of all-time greats because he's on the verge as of right now. The first squad we'll visit in the AFC South is J.J. Watt's squad, the Houston Texans. They made the playoffs for the first time in team history back in 2011. Now, in 2017, the Texans went 4-12. They finished 4th in the AFC South. The biggest question or the biggest storyline for the Texans coming into 2018 is, can a healthy DeShaun Watson lead the Texans to the playoffs? I absolutely believe he can. And in today's NFL, as we all know, success begins and ends with your quarterback. You have to have a good quarterback to be successful in the National Football League. Now, there's always exceptions to every rule. The most recent exception I can think of is the 2015 Denver Broncos when they had Peyton Manning, who struggled at the quarterback position. Now, that's not a knock on Peyton Manning. All that is saying that in 2015, Peyton Manning's body gave up on him. He still had his mind because he still audibled in and out of some plays that got the Broncos out of some sticky situations, and it saved the Broncos on critical drives in several games that season. Several critical third down conversions, first down conversions, touchdowns, whatever it was. Peyton Manning got the Broncos out of a lot of sticky situations offensively in 2015, despite the fact of his body giving up on him and his productivity falling short as a result. But where the Broncos didn't have it at the quarterback position as a result of his body giving up on him, the Broncos had a historically great defense. So they had the defense that could make up for that lack of production at the quarterback position. That's not a knock on Peyton Manning because Peyton Manning was a rock star. Even with that down year in 2015, Peyton Manning was an absolute rock star, Hall of Fame quarterback. But just saying that's the most recent exception that I can think of to the rule that you have to have a good to great quarterback to be successful in the National Football League. And if you're not going to have that, you better have a great defense on the other side of the ball that can help give him that supporting cast to help get the team through. Now, DeShaun Watson's rookie season, through 6 games, he threw 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 1,699 yards. DeShaun Watson was on his way to shattering several records as a rookie if he would have been able to stay on the field before he was derailed by injury. Now, through his 6 starts as a rookie, DeShaun Watson led the Texans to average 34.7 points a game. Houston went 3-3 in that time. In his absence, they scored an average of 13 points and went 1-9. As far as their wide receiver core goes, DeShaun Watson had those boys balling out. DeAndre Hopkins, his numbers were high as all get out when Watson was under center. Hop finished 2017 with 96 catches, 1,378 yards in 15 games, and 13 touchdowns. Now, that was a career high for number 15. 7 of those 13 touchdowns came from DeShaun Watson. Will Fuller, he's a second-year wideout. He also benefited with Watson under center. In the 4 games that these two played together, Will Fuller, he caught 7 touchdown passes. In the 6 games without Watson, Will Fuller had 0 touchdown catches. Through 10 games, Will Fuller caught 50 passes for 423 yards, so he's a good fill-in, good role player for the Texans at the wide receiver spot. DeShaun Watson, like I said earlier, he was on pace to shatter some records as a rookie. He was on pace to kill the record for touchdown passes by a rookie quarterback. Peyton Manning, of course, set that record with 26 with the Colts back in 1998. Russell Wilson went on to tie it in 2012 for the Seahawks. Now, through 6 games, DeShaun Watson passed for 19 touchdown passes. He was on pace to easily get at least 30 touchdown passes in his rookie year before he tore his ACL in November. Now, if this trio of DeShaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Will Fuller can stay healthy in 2018, the Houston Texans are going to be a problem. Now, I said on a previous podcast a few weeks ago when I was talking about DeShaun Watson and the Texans offense, DeShaun Watson had 2 memorable games last season against the Seahawks and the Patriots. Those 2 games stuck out to me because this was a rookie quarterback that went into Seattle and went toe-to-toe with one of the best defenses in the NFL. The Texans ended up losing that game, but DeShaun Watson, he took the Seahawks defense to task in that game. Then he turns around later on in the season, and he goes head-to-head, toe-to-toe with the New England Patriots. One of the best quarterbacks of all time, and Tom Brady goes head-to-head, toe-to-toe with him, and they ended up losing that game as well. But the fact that DeShaun Watson was able to hang in there with one of the best defenses in the league and go toe-to-toe with one of the best quarterbacks of all time, or a quarterback who some people feel like he's the best of all time, tells you the amount of potential and the height of the ceiling for DeShaun Watson. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, the Texans, they had the 20th ranked defense in 2017. Injuries had a lot to do with that low ranking because the Texans defense was wrecked by injuries. Led off by J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless were the 2 biggest pieces missing for their defense. Now, those 2 guys are back healthy. They also added Tyrann Mathieu, a.k.a. the Honey Badger, in the offseason, as well as Aaron Colvin. Jadeveon Clowney, he's still wrecking shop on the edge for the Texans. He played all 16 games in 2017. Clowney racked up 9.5 sacks, so he should be able to build off of that productivity coming into 2018, especially if J.J. Watt can stay healthy on the opposite side. Now, as far as J.J. Watt goes, if J.J. Watt can get back to that level that we saw him at in 2013, 2014, when he was sacking dudes left and right, and he was just an absolute all-star. I was living in Houston in 2014, and J.J. Watt, I mean, he may as well have been, the second coming of Jesus in that particular area. I mean, they love that dude in Houston, and rightfully so. I mean, he does a lot of good stuff for the community, as well as he does a lot of great things on the field. And he's been derailed by injuries the last few years. But if J.J. Watt can get back to his old school self, the Houston defense, they've got the talent to be a top 10 or even a top 5 defense. And we've seen the Texans do that defensively. We've seen them have a really good defense. It's just the big thing for the Texans, and this is another storyline for the Houston Texans as a team, is consistency, because we've seen them be really good in one phase of the game and struggle in other areas of the game. We've seen the Texans have a really good defense. We've seen the Texans have a really good defense, a defense that's capable of playing at a championship level, but at the same time, they had an offense that was struggling. We've seen the Texans have a really good rushing game, but then the passing game struggles, or they have struggles at the quarterback position. We've seen the Texans be really good in the passing game and then struggle in the rushing game and then struggle at the quarterback position. So the biggest thing for the Texans, for me, coming into 2018 for them as a team is, can they be more consistent? Can they finish games? Can they finally put it all together? And more importantly, can they stay healthy enough to make a deep push into the playoffs? Because if the Texans can finally find that rhythm, if they can finally put it all together, if they can finally get consistent and more importantly, stay pretty healthy, the Houston Texans, they've got the talent to go deep into the playoffs. Now, I'm not going to say a Super Bowl contender, but they do have the talent to at least get to the division and maybe even the AFC Championship level if they can keep it all together in 2018. Second squad up in the AFC South is the Indianapolis Colts. They went 4-12 in 2017, finished third place in the division due to the tiebreaker with the Houston Texans. The biggest storyline here is the most obvious in Indy. What will come of Andrew Luck's health? Andrew Luck hasn't played in a game since week 17 of the 2016 season due to an injury to his throwing shoulder, of course. Now, the Colts believe he'll be able to play this year, and he started throwing NFL standard footballs a few weeks back. Now, as far as Andrew Luck goes, we saw everything that happened. That became a mess last year. We saw Jim Irsay get upset with him and he actually threw some shade at him through the media and kind of talked some trash on him. You know, Jim Irsay was upset because Andrew Luck didn't feel like he was ready to go last year with his shoulder. Jim Irsay had basically came out and made promises to Colts season ticket holders that this dude was going to be on the field. And I get it. He was upset. His quarterback, his diamond, basically his gem, wasn't ready to go. And in his eyes, he was upset, but he went about it the wrong way. He threw insults at Andrew Luck publicly in the media. And, to Andrew Luck's credit, he didn't respond. He kind of just let it go. Now, what he said in private and what he did in private, that's two different things. That may be two different things. We'll never know. But to Andrew Luck's credit, he kept it classy, let a lot of stuff roll off his back. And, I can't blame Andrew Luck for not rushing back to play, because at the end of the day, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, Indianapolis they've got to basically put the blame on themselves for this dude being hurt like he is. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I can't blame Andrew Luck for not rushing back from injury, especially to your throwing shoulder. That's your moneymaker. So, by all means, if you have to sit out a season, let your body heal up. I know in athletic circles and locker rooms, the deal is get back as fast as you can. Don't miss a lot of time. Tough it out. Yada, yada, yada. But what good does it do for a guy to rush back from injury, especially injury to their throwing shoulder? What good does it do them or the team to rush back from injury and the injury is not 100% healed, and then you're in this same boat either later on that season or possibly even the next season? So just take the hit now, shut it down, and let it heal up. And that's exactly what Andrew Luck did, and I don't see the problem with it. But, it got a little bit messy between him and the Colts there for a little bit, but that all seems to be worked out now. Like I said, the Colts believe he'll be playing this year. Andrew Luck actually came out and told the Colts website he's absolutely playing week 1. Now, a healthy Andrew Luck will greatly speed up the Colts rebuilding process. Now, to show you how much confidence the Colts have in Andrew Luck being back this year, they didn't draft a quarterback in any round of the NFL draft this year, or they really didn't do much homework on the position. They kind of looked at guys. Now, of course, they got that King's ransom from the Jets for the Jets to move up, but the Colts didn't go out and just do any kind of in-depth homework as far as the quarterback position goes. So that tells me that they feel extremely confident that Andrew Luck's going to be good to go in 2018. Now, if Andrew Luck can indeed go, it is in the Colts' best interest if Luck can go, because in his first 3 seasons, he led the team to the playoffs each year. Another big question, and this ties in to Andrew Luck. Well, this ties into the success of the football team as a whole, because another big question for the Colts coming into this year is what will they do about the offensive line, because their offensive line is the main reason why Andrew Luck is in the position he's in, and thus the main reason why the Colts are in the position that they're in, because Andrew Luck in past years got absolutely lit up by opposing defenses. The Colts offensive line surrendered 182 quarterback pressures in 2017. They ranked near the bottom of the league the last 2 years across the board in multiple offensive categories. Now, they got major help in the draft along the line. They selected Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame, who was considered by many to be the best lineman in the draft. They took another guard, Auburn's Braden Smith, in the second round. Now, the Colts, they gave up 10 sacks alone in one game, Week 8, to the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017. Now, the Colts, they wish and they long and they hope that they're on this track. They wish they could get back to the Manning days when the line would surrender 12 to 15 sacks in an entire season. And I remember Peyton Manning in Indy. Peyton Manning hardly ever got his jersey dirty in Indianapolis. But that also goes to Peyton Manning's credit, because Peyton Manning had one of the quickest releases in the National Football League. It was just over 2 seconds when the ball was coming out of his hand. So that kind of goes hand in hand to each other. Now, of course, Andrew Luck, he's a lot more mobile than Peyton Manning was, so he doesn't mind holding on to the ball considerably longer than Peyton Manning did. But that just goes to show you just how good the Colts were at, one, not only protecting the quarterback, but two, getting rid of the ball and protecting the ball. Now, they still have Anthony Costanzo holding it down at left tackle, and with Andrew Luck being a right-handed quarterback, you got to have that left tackle. You got to have that blind spot protector taken care of. Now, with the addition of Nelson and Smith, will this be the year when things finally start turning around for the big boys up front in Indianapolis? Now, another storyline for the Indianapolis Colts is the notable game, a.k.a. storyline game, where the Colts play in New England on Thursday, October 4th. Now, this game, to me, now on paper, a lot of people may say that this game doesn't really seem like it will have a lot of fireworks. It won't have a lot of juice because, it's the Colts against Tom Brady. I get that, but, and the only reason, there's a few reasons why I say this game sticks out to me this season. Now, of course, back in 2015, the Colts were the reason that the whole Tom Brady and deflated football mess got started. They were the ones that blew the whistle on that whole deal going back to that AFC Championship game from the 2014 season. And as a result, they got that whole Deflategate stuff started. Now, Deflategate, that was one of the dumbest names I've ever heard attached to a scandal. And of course, that whole thing was, considerably blown out of proportion and got extremely messy and was handled very poorly. But, that's another story for another day. The Deflategate name just really got to me because it just doesn't even make any sense. And it sounds, it's just a weird name for a scandal. And, people are so quick to want to put gate at the end of a scandal. It doesn't ring true. It doesn't have that nice ring to it like Watergate back in history. That actually, makes sense. That word just rolls off of your tongue, Watergate. And then you go and you look at Deflategate. It's like, dude, that's just me kind of just mindlessly rambling. But yeah, that was one of the dumbest names I've ever heard for a scandal. Anyway, fast forward to this offseason, the Colts hire Josh McDaniels to be their next head coach. He agrees to it. He gives them his word, and he says, I'm going to be the coach. And that was at 7:59 a.m. that morning. The Colts, they announced it. He had already had a staff put together. He had already recruited guys. Guys that already had to basically start coordinating moves to Indianapolis. They've left teams. They've had to start working stuff out with their families. Then Josh McDaniels, he backed out at the very last minute. And again, he had already picked out assistants and everything. And for a coach to pick out assistants, these aren't just guys just coming and saying, hey, I want to be on your staff. No, he had already went out and recruited guys and convinced guys to come work for him on his staff, and then he backed out on them. That, to me, speaks more to Josh McDaniels as a person than anything. But I'll leave that alone. But it's definitely a move that I wouldn't have made, and it remains to be seen if he's messed up his chances at being an NFL head coach. I don't think the door is completely shut on him because there's always all you need is one owner, and NFL owners, they're business people. These are business-minded men, and there's at least one owner out there who's saying, you know what, it was just business. I would have done the same thing, so of course I'll give this dude a chance. Now, I do think he closed a lot of doors to himself with certain teams. I do think there are certain teams out there that won't bother to mess with Josh McDaniels moving forward. And there's a chance that Josh McDaniels with this move there's a chance he committed career suicide in doing so. But, to me, it also says that, there's a chance, and, of course, the Patriots will never confirm it. But there's also a chance that, he sees that, he's the next in line to be the Patriots head coach. And, if that's the case, I can't blame him for wanting to stay, but, I will blame him for how he went about stuff. That was a very, very unprofessional way in how he went about it, but, it is what it is. Now, Colts general manager Chris Ballard, he came out and made the now famous quote at the end of that press conference that the rivalry's back on. So there's a little bit of juice in this game. Then the Colts, they go on to hire Frank Reich, who was the Eagles offensive coordinator in 2017. So the Eagles, they probably aren't too happy with Josh McDaniels as a result now, because Frank Reich had that Eagles offense rolling like a train down the tracks last season. To show you just how bad this move was by Josh McDaniels, his own agent dropped him after this whole mess. So, I really hope for his sake that Josh McDaniels knows what he's doing, because he closed a lot of doors off to himself. But even with all that aside, this game to me is going to be a really good game. And a lot of people are kind of overlooking it, but I think this game is going to have some fireworks in it. So this is definitely one of the storyline that I'm looking forward to from the Indianapolis Colts in 2018. Squad 3 in the AFC South is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars made a huge leap from 2016 to 2017. They went 3-13 in 2016, finished 4th in the division. They jumped all the way to 10-6 in 2017. They won the division in Doug Marrone's first year as a head coach. Now, this is just the 3rd time in team history that the Jacksonville Jaguars won the division. They snapped a 10-year playoff drought last year. They lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, the first time the Jags made it that far since 1999. The Jags had a top 5 defense in 2017. They finished 2nd in sacks with 55, earning the nickname Saxonville along the way. Finished 2nd in yards allowed a game at 286, among a host of other categories. Now, they had the number 1 rushing offense, averaging 141 rush yards a game. The biggest storyline for me for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2018 will be watching if Blake Bortles and the offense as a whole can become more consistent and finish more games. Now, even though Jacksonville led the league in rushing, it slowed down the last 6 weeks of the season, and their running game was effectively stopped in the 4th quarter against New England in that AFC Championship contest. They go and they sign all-pro guard Andrew Norwell to do exactly that, which has become more consistent and more punishing and more dominant on the ground. They also signed Blake Bortles to a 3-year, $54 million extension this offseason. Now, Blake Bortles, I really don't know what to say about Blake Bortles, because to me his numbers are kind of average. But I mean, I guess at this point he's Jacksonville's best chance at the quarterback position. He stayed about the same stat-wise from 2016 to 2017. His touchdown interception ratio was 23 touchdowns to 16 interceptions in 2016 to 21 touchdowns and 13 interceptions in 2017. So outside of just ensuring that they have a decent quarterback, I'm not really sure what Blake Bortles did to warrant such an extension. But hey, and that's not throwing shade at Blake Bortles. Me personally, I just don't see what the rush was to go ahead and get him extended. But, it is what it is. Anyway, this will be offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett's 2nd full season in the driver's seat. So that continuity should pay off for the Jacksonville Jaguars coming into 2018. That should pay off from a chemistry standpoint as well as from a play calling standpoint. Running back Leonard Fournette, he hit the ground running literally in his rookie year. He ran for 1,040 yards and 9 touchdowns through 13 games. Storyline for him is, can he continue to build on that success in his 2nd year? Because going off of his rookie year, Leonard Fournette has a very promising career ahead of him. As far as the Jags defense, can they build off of their 2017 success? Was this just a 1-year wonder for the Jags defensively, or is this some groundwork for what's to come on the defensive side of the ball? They've got Jalen Ramsey over there, one of the lockdown corners in the National Football League. And Jalen Ramsey, he's a talented guy. He likes to talk a lot. So I'm anxious to see how quarterbacks will try to attack him. One thing about Jalen Ramsey is he does not lack confidence by any point. And to be honest with you, as a cornerback, you have to have kind of that streak in you where I'm the best in the world. Nobody can, do this and that and the other. You can't catch on me. You can't pass on me. You have to have that attitude. A lot of people are kind of turned off by how Jalen Ramsey talks, and he does talk a lot, especially for a young guy. He talks a lot, and I can kind of understand what people are saying, what people are saying, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to have that streak in you. Now, even the quietest of corners like Champ Bailey back in the day, Champ Bailey didn't do a lot of talking, but best believe Champ Bailey had that confident streak, and Champ Bailey had that mentality, you're not going to pass on me, you're not going to catch on me, I'm going to shut your passing game down, at least on my side. You're not bringing that noise over here. Champ Bailey had that mentality. Now, he didn't talk as much in the media like Jalen Ramsey does. Jalen Ramsey and, a host of other guys, like Josh Norman, those dudes have no issues whatsoever talking trash through the media. But Champ Bailey, if you ever listened to his on the field stuff, Champ Bailey talked that noise, and I used to love to hear it. And just somebody who used to play the game of football, you have to have dog mentality in you to some degree, because if you can't be out on the field, being Mr. Nice Guy. If you're out on the field being Mr. Nice Guy, you ain't gonna make it. So you do have to have that nasty mentality at some point inside of you. And as far as Jalen Ramsey, talk all you want, as long as he's backing up his trash talk. It's not like he's just one of these dudes out here talking noise and then getting beat on the field. He's talking noise and he's backing it up on the field. So, he's backing it up. I don't have an issue with it one bit. But I do want to see if the Jags defense can continue to build off of their 2017 success, because so far, from all indications, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're a young team, and they've got the core of that team locked in for a good amount of years. So, the Jags, they've been trending upwards in individual aspects of the games the last few years. Now, 2017 was the first time that it seemingly all came together for Jacksonville, for them to get as far as they did. So, with all that being said, now we'll see if this upward trend continues for Jacksonville. But if you're a Jags fan, you gotta like the direction that this team is heading in. But now, another aspect of the Jaguars coming into 2018, y'all know I love uniforms, and I like looking at NFL uniforms and seeing the differences and the different designs and creations that teams, tend to come up with. And, the Jaguars, they got new uniforms over the offseason, and I just got to say, these uniforms are kind of weird looking. I really wish Jacksonville would have left their uniforms alone, because there was nothing wrong with the Jags' older uniforms. I don't understand why they felt the need to redo their uniforms, but hey, I don't make those decisions. Now, these new uniforms that the Jags have, they're not near as cool looking as the old uniforms with the gold accents and the outlines that surrounded the numbers. The teal jerseys that they have, for me, they're a no-go. They just look weird. They've got an all-white version of the uniform, and this all-white version, it's not terrible, but it's very bland. It doesn't have any kind of flavor or jazz to it. It's just bland looking, and I sound like Martha Stewart on this part of the podcast, but the all-white uniform that they have is just a white uniform with black numbers and letters. That's really it, and it's very just blah looking. I don't get it. I really don't. Well, yeah, I do. I see what the Jaguars were trying to do. They're trying to go for a more simple look, a more professional look, I guess, to let folks know that they mean business. And, I understand the thinking behind it. You kind of want to rebrand yourself and rebrand your team. I get that. But, if the Jaguars, from a playing and production standpoint, if they would have just if they keep building on top of what they did in 2017, if they keep on that upward trend, I really don't, everything else would have taken care of itself. But, it is what it is. I don't, as far as the gold goes, I don't get it. There's very little gold. There's very little to no gold in this uniform, and gold was one of the things that set the Jaguars apart from the other teams in the National Football League. Even when they had those two-tone gold helmets, I thought that was a really, really neat concept. I like the older uniforms when, Fred Taylor was holding stuff down in the backfield for the Jaguars, when they would have the the black pants with the white jersey, and the white jersey had the gold accents around the numbers and the letters. That was a really, really good uniform. Me personally, I really feel like these uniforms, they need more gold accents and outlines to really bring the combo all the way home and really give this uniform some flavor and some jazz. If they were to put gold and figure out a way to give gold accents and gold outlines on all versions of this new uniform, I really think that would help bring it home. That would really sell it, at least for me, and this is just my personal opinion. Like I said, the previous Jags uniforms with the two-tone helmets, those were some really good-looking uniforms. These, for me, these are just too dull. And I'll put some pictures up on the Undrafted Podcast Instagram page just to give some reference as to what I'm talking about. These uniforms, they're just too dull for me. And you know, honestly, you know, I know Nike makes great shoes. Like, I love Nike shoes as far as, like, you know, running shoes and performance shoes, athletic shoes. Nike makes great kicks. But, you know, the more I see Nike redesign NFL uniforms, for me, the lower the bar gets. Because I see the Seahawks uniforms and what Nike did with those. I didn't really care for that redesign. I see what they did with the Buccaneers uniform. I really didn't care for that redesign. You know, I've yet to see one NFL uniform that Nike redesigned and it improved the look for that squad. And that's just me personally. Like I said, you know, I'm not trying to throw slugs. I'm just not all that impressed by Nike's redesigns. So with all that being said, I pray to football Jesus, please keep Nike and their redesign committee away from the Denver Broncos uniform. Please. Fourth and final squad we'll talk about in the AFC South is the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, they went 9-7 in 2017. They finished second in the AFC South. They also made some uniform upgrades, but I'll talk about that later. The Titans, they've got one primetime game in 2018, Monday night, November 5th, against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if you're a Titan fan, the NFL, they threw the Titans a bone. They've got the second easiest schedule right after their AFC South counterparts, the Houston Texans. Now, for me, the biggest storyline for Tennessee is what will the Titans look like under first-time head coach Mike Vrabel? That's going to be the biggest question. How will the players respond to him and his style? Mike Vrabel, you know, he was a linebacker for the Patriots. Well, that was the most notable team that he played for was the New England Patriots. He went from a linebacker coach for the Texans to head coach of a playoff contending team in 5 years. And that's a remarkable jump on your resume. A great achievement. That's a great achievement for serving as a defensive coordinator for just one season. Now, he took over for Romeo Crennel as Houston's defensive coordinator when they moved Crennel to the assistant head coach job. Now, in Vrabel's 1 year as the Texans defensive coordinator, they gave up the most points in the NFL during the regular season. Now, you kind of have to give a side note there. Some people will say that's a red flag, which it might be, which you could say that. Now, in Mike Vrabel's defense, the Houston Texans, they were wrecked by injuries, as I said earlier. You know, when you lose talent like that, you know, you're going to take a considerable hit. Now, he takes over from Mike Mularkey, who was fired after Tennessee got all the way to the divisional round of the playoffs and then took the L in Foxborough. Now, that game against Kansas City, that was one of the most memorable games I've seen. And my favorite play of that game was when Marcus Mariota, you know, he scrambles outside, you know, passes the ball, and then the defender knocks down the ball, passes it right back to him. And then Mariota runs it in for a touchdown. That was a remarkable play. Mike Mularkey was let go, well, mainly because of the regression of Marcus Mariota, because even though they got that far in 2017, Marcus Mariota had 13 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. In 2016, just to give you some reference, he had 26 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Now, you know, to me, Mike Vrabel's an interesting hire because, you know, they let Mike Mularkey go because Marcus Mariota regressed. But, you know, to me, it seems like if a franchise wants to get more production out of its young signal caller, it would seem like they would lean towards getting a more offensive-minded coach. Now, that's not to say that a defensive-minded coach won't be able to get more out of Marcus Mariota. That's not to say that at all. It seems like logic that you would get a more offensive-minded coach, but by the same token, your offensive coordinator will have a more direct say-so in that area since he'll be working with Marcus Mariota on a closer scale than Mike Vrabel will. The Titans hired Matt LaFleur as their offensive coordinator, which on paper is a really, really good hire. Matt LaFleur helped Sean McVay coordinate the Rams offense that led the league in scoring in 2017. They helped the Rams get to their first playoff appearance since 2004. Matt LaFleur, to give you a little bit of history on this dude, he's worked with RG3 and Kirk Cousins as quarterback coach for the Redskins. He's also worked with Matt Ryan as quarterback coach with the Falcons. He helped develop Jared Goff into a top 10 passer last season. So Matt LaFleur knows his offensive stuff. So the storyline, another storyline there is, what will the effects of a new coaching staff be on a young franchise quarterback? Remains to be seen how big of an effect that this coaching staff will have on Marcus Mariota. But so far, especially with that Matt LaFleur pick, so far it looks like the Titans have him in good hands from an offensive production standpoint. The Titans, they've still got Delaney Walker, who, even though he's getting up there in age, he's still one of the best tight ends in the league as Mariota's go-to guy. And a quarterback's best friend is a great pass-catching and route-running tight end. So they've got that part taken care of. Their running game, they've got a great running game over in Tennessee. It's headed up by Derrick Henry. Then they go out and they get Dion Lewis in the offseason. Henry's the big man in the running back room. He led the Titans with 744 rush yards on 176 carries, averaged 4.2 yards a carry, 5 rush touchdowns and 136 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown in 2017. Dion Lewis, he's one of the most versatile, if not the most versatile, running backs in the NFL, which it really kind of rings a red flag as to why the Patriots let him go. But then, too, I guess it doesn't, because Bill Belichick is known for not wanting to pay people. So whenever it comes time to pay a guy and you're in New England, you can almost bet that if your name is not Tom Brady or Julian Edelman, you might be getting paid elsewhere. He rushed for 896 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry, 214 receiving yards, and 3 touchdown catches in 2017 for Dion Lewis. So why did New England let him go again? Now, these two dudes could be one of the best running back tandems in the NFL next season. Tennessee, they've still got a really good offensive line. They only surrendered 15 sacks last year. So with all that being said, that's another storyline for the Tennessee Titans. Will this be one of the best, if not the best, running back tandem in the National Football League? Now, the Titans, they didn't completely redo their uniform like the Jaguars did, but they got new jerseys in April. They got new jerseys and new helmets in April. So I guess they upgraded their uniform. They tweaked it, but they didn't completely redo it. And I just got to say, these uniforms, I'll just be honest, they're ugly. I like what the Titans are doing from a football standpoint, but from an aesthetic standpoint with these uniforms, I don't get it. And, this is the first time in the 20-plus years that the Titans have been in existence that they've redone or rebranded their uniform, and they dropped the ball on this one, man. The jerseys that they had before were better. I thought the Titans uniforms were just fine, and if they were going to make any tweaks to it, they should have been more minimal tweaks. I don't get this rebranding that they did. The rebranding that they did, and I'll put some pictures up of this as well on the Instagram page, where they just kind of tweaked the jerseys and they changed the font of the numbers and they changed the color of the helmet from white to dark blue, and they tweaked the logo a little bit. It seems like they were trying to keep things the same but then change them up. It was like they didn't want to rock the boat. I think if they were going to do anything to it, they should have just completely rebranded the uniform and just went a completely different direction. But they kept the uniform basically the same, except that they changed the helmet from white to dark blue. They added some weird font to the numbers, and they added a few angles and some piping on the side. And, they called it an upgrade for their uniform, but if you ask me, this was a slight downgrade for the Tennessee Titans. Like I said earlier, my bar for Nike redesigns is not very high, and, this didn't help that case any. It's not a terrible look, but the Titans could have done better by their uniform and their brand with this redesign. Now, I'm going to switch gears completely and go to the Cheat Meal Chronicles part of this podcast. And, I love Cheat Meal Chronicles because Cheat Meal Chronicles gives me the chance to eat whatever I want to eat for one meal and not have to worry about counting calories or counting protein grams or anything like that. I can just eat what I want to eat. Then I get to tell you all about it, and then I get to pass along some good news to you. Because if a place is good, I'm going to tell you about it. This place that I hit up yesterday was Hutchins Barbecue, located in McKinney. They're ranked in the top 50 best barbecue places in Texas, and they absolutely deserve to be there. And, you know, now when it comes to these rankings, especially of food places, especially of barbecue places, because you know how we love our barbecue here in Texas. You know, I've ate at places that they were on all these lists, you know, the top 10 places to eat in Texas, top 10 barbecue spots in the United States. And, you know, then you go up there and you eat this food and you find that it is severely overhyped. Well, that's not the case with Hutchins Barbecue. This is not some spot that's just hyped up, you know, on a list only to let you down when you get there. And like I said, you know, so many of those places, especially in the DFW area, there's a lot of places here that you see them on all these lists and then you go eat the food and it's just like, dude, who did they pay to get on this list? Because, you know, the flavor of the food is not there. You know, the consistency is not good. You know, the overall flavor is just not good. But like I said, Hutchins Barbecue is not that kind of place. This is a place where it's on a top 50 list for a reason. Really, I mean, it could be top 10 on one of these lists because, man, this food was really, really good. Now, you know, people from Kansas City, I have got to make my way to Kansas City one day because people in Kansas City, they swear up and down that Kansas City has the best barbecue in the world. And I just want to go try it for myself. Because, you know, if you ask Texas people, we have the best barbecue, well, in the world. If you ask Kansas City people, they say the same thing about Kansas City. If you ask Memphis people, they say the same thing about Memphis. So, you know, it's just amazing to see how barbecue tends to bring people together. But anyway, and it's also amazing to see how barbecue brings out the competitive spirit in people. Anyway, Hutchins Barbecue, they've got smoked turkey, brisket, jalapeno cheddar sausage, jalapeno beans, brisket beans, mac and cheese. They got loaded mashed potatoes, and that's just some of the menu items that's on this menu. Now, I had the all-you-can-eat option, which was $20, and at first when I got there, I had made up in my mind I was just going to do the 2-meat plate, but then when I got there, I was like, you know what? And I saw they had an all-you-can-eat option. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to eat as much as I know I could eat, but I'm definitely going to try a little bit of everything. And, you know, I mean, you can't beat $20 for all you can eat barbecue. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and get the $20 all you can eat option. And then I'll just try a little bit of everything. And, you know, to me, that, like I said, that's the best value in my opinion. Now our waitress, Karen was amazing. The employees here, they're really friendly, very attentive. This was my first time here, but it definitely wasn't my last time. Now, for me, I tried the ribs, I tried the brisket, I tried the turkey, I tried fried okra, some mac and cheese, and a little bit of pinto beans. Or not pinto beans, jalapeno beans. And I know that sounds like a lot, but the portions were small, so it wasn't like I was just like getting stuffed. Now, as far as the meats, that brisket and the turkey, they had this great smoky flavor. They were juicy. They were tender. I mean, as soon as you hit the brisket and the turkey with a fork, I mean, they were just falling apart. It was so good. It was so tender, and they had that good smoky flavor. And the flavor, it wasn't overpowering with spice or anything like that. It was just that good smoked flavor inside the meat. Now, the ribs, oh my God, the ribs were, man, to this day, those are some of the best ribs I have ever had. The ribs, when I picked up one of the ribs, the meat immediately started falling off the bone. They had a good mixture of sauce. I don't know what they put in that sauce, but that sauce is out of this world. The ribs, they had a nice smoked flavor to them. They were good and tender. And yeah, I can't say enough about this place. This place was really good, and I had never even heard of Hutchins Barbecue until my homeboy Kyle told me about it. And it's one of those hidden gems. Yeah. And I mean, it's a small building whenever you know a place is good. And this is how I knew this place was going to be good, because when I pulled up, the line was already out of the building. And, you know, I've lived in Dallas for, going on, 5 years now. And one thing that I've really kind of noticed in this area, and I've heard from other people in other areas as well of the United States, you can always tell when a place is going to have really good food, because if the line is out of the building, you're at the right spot. And the waiting time, we really didn't wait that long in line. We waited maybe 20 minutes. I mean, I was expecting, a 30 or 45 minute wait time, but, we waited 20, maybe 25 minutes at the most. So it wasn't bad at all. Now, going back to this, this macaroni and cheese, I am very picky when it comes to macaroni and cheese, because my mentality when it comes to macaroni and cheese, I don't eat everybody's macaroni and cheese. I treat macaroni and cheese like I treat eggs. I don't eat everybody's eggs. I don't eat everybody's oatmeal. My grandma used to say, you don't eat everybody's cooking. And man, I took that to heart, because I don't eat everybody's mac and cheese, because some people just can't do mac and cheese. And this place can do mac and cheese. That mac and cheese was good. It was good. It was thick, but it was creamy at the same time. It wasn't dry. It had that really good cheese. Well, that really good cheesy flavor. And this was authentic cheese. This wasn't just some cheese that you just mix with powder and throw in some noodles. Nah, this was authentic macaroni and cheese. And on top of that, it had bacon bits in it. So, man, when it comes to macaroni and cheese, trust me when I say, if I tell you a place has good macaroni and cheese, I am what some people would say bougie when it comes to macaroni and cheese, even though I'm not a bougie person. When it comes to macaroni and cheese, I am very particular. So if I tell you a place has good macaroni and cheese, there's a very, very good chance that the macaroni and cheese is good there. Because if it's good, I'm going to let people know. But yeah, Hutchins Barbecue, try it out. I've got a picture on my Instagram page at the Undrafted Podcast. And I only took one picture because, man, I was hungry as all get out. And I regretted not taking more, but I'll be back at this place soon enough, and I'll get some more pictures for you. But yes, Hutchins Barbecue, or they're located on Tennessee Street in McKinney. Look them up, go by there, try it out. Hit them up on Instagram at Hutchins Barbecue. But yes, do yourself a favor. Look up Hutchins Barbecue, go by there, try the food, and be happy. And then whenever you do, feel free to let me know about it. Get on my Instagram page at the Undrafted Podcast, or Twitter at the Undrafted Pod. Let me know what you think. Well, that's my time for episode 16 of the Undrafted Podcast. Thank you to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for giving me the gifts, talents, and resources to do this. Thank you for taking time out of your day to tune in. Your support means the absolute world to me. Thank you to Hutchins Barbecue for the great food and the great hospitality. Go check them out. And don't forget, look up the Undrafted Podcast on Instagram at the Undrafted Podcast, and on Twitter at the Undrafted Pod. And remember, do your best and let God handle the rest. Be blessed.